Thank you for joining us for this series on the Heroine's Quest, How to Heed the Call to Adventure. Thank you to our guest, Sean Pearson Dingle, author of Still Here, Still Becoming. So we're going to dive right in. This is a lesson that I have created for a course called, as you will see shortly, Heed the Call to Adventure, How to Write Your Own Heroine's Quest. This is the main course from which I'm taking this exercise. Before we get into talking about being a hero or heroine in your own life, just a bit of a definition of what a hero or heroine is, right? So obviously you can see this as an example of Joan of Arc, who sacrificed, who performed feats, who helped people, right? Fought through adversity, and then they come back with being changed, being evolved. Okay. What I decided to do was to write my own story, right? And this is a part of why the course is called Heeding the Call to Adventure. Writing your own hero's quest or heroine's quest is because it's been a therapeutic way for me to share my life story, but in a through this framework. It's symbolic, right? And so this course is designed for people who might want to write their own book, their own memoir, or they might just want to do this as an exercise. So it really kind of serves two purposes. These are illustrations by Wayne Rodney, who did the illustrations for both books 1 and 2. And while my books are geared toward adults, I love fairy tales and I love illustrations. So I wanted that to be a part of it. So the idea of the hero's quest or the monomyth, as we'll talk about shortly, comes from Joseph Campbell. He's one of the main authors, writers of the idea of this hero's quest, right? But in Campbell's case, what he did was that he was studying myth, religion, stories, throughout the ages from all cultures and across the globe. And what he found was that there's basically this one story, right? There's this arc of a story that has particular stages in it. And he saw this over and over and over, which prompted him to call this the monomyth. And he wrote a book, obviously in 1949, called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. So what I'm doing is I'm using this idea or this model, but I'm applying it to real life. So not mythology, but mapping your own life onto the stages of the hero's quest or the heroine's quest. For example, he looked at biblical stories. Like I said, he looked at myth. And if you think about a lot of these stories, whether it be African, Greek, mythology, there are stories that are told over and over and over. We can also find this in modern day literature and in film. Okay. So what Campbell has here, these are his 17 stages of the hero's journey. But as you can see, he is not the only one who has a stage model. We have Leeming, Christopher Vogler, and Phil Cosinu. And what I implore people to do is to understand these, maybe learn, and then take the stages or that you resonate with, right? So not all of Campbell's 17 stages are going to be relevant to your life. But when you look at what they mean, you can start to see how, okay, yeah, that is a part of my life. And you can see it in this different light. And that's the mental health angle, is that instead of seeing trials, tribulations, adversity as reasons to get down or to feel anxious, they're actually just a normal part of the quest. This is an important infographic because what this shows is that the heroine's quest is it's a circle. This is the arc of the story. And just to sort of generally, we're going to talk about the stages in a little bit more detail, but generally, you start off in the known world, which can also be called the mundane world. And when we start hearing from Sean, she's going to tell you what that was for her. Then you will experience a call to adventure. This call can be from within or without. It can happen suddenly. It can happen because of a tragedy. It can happen because of something good. But either way, when you feel this call and you strike out, you cross the threshold. And that's when you go into the unknown world. Okay, this is where the action starts. And this is where the transformation starts. And in many people's cases, including Sean, this is where the healing really takes place. So I'll go through the stages in a little bit more detail, but I just wanted you to see the general arc of the story and to understand that there are helpers, there are mentors along the way. There will be crazy things that happen, there will be scary things that happen. But ultimately, what happens with the heroine is they have to fight a battle. It's usually internal, it's usually not a dragon, but something like a dragon. They have this big ordeal, which they necessarily win. Now, along here, the trials and tribulations, they might win some, they might lose some, but ultimately they win the ordeal, gain the boon, and then they return with the elixir, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. These are just examples from culture. They're illustrations of where we see in everyday life examples of the hero and the heroine's quest. All of the stage models, you probably noticed, all have these three acts, and the acts are departure, initiation, and then the return. The stages that Sean and I are going to be talking about are these. So the ordinary world, the call to adventure, these stages from the departure phase. And we're going to talk also about what are some of the trials and tribulations she encountered. What was the ordeal? What was her ultimate boon that she won? And then the crossing of the return threshold. But what we're really going to be focusing on is the elixir with which she returned.